right, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started. So, welcome, first of all, into our critical conversation election edition. Before we get started, I just want to root us in some norms. So, just want to remind everybody. So, the habit that we root our norms in is the love one another habit, which is where we uplift others and we restore trust when necessary. And very similar to how we treat community circle, we have our one mic and our opt-in conversation norm. So when someone speaks, we listen, and then of course we opt in. It's okay not to know, but it's not okay not to try. So as we get started, if you guys have a pencil or a piece of paper or a place where you can kind of jot a couple notes down as we get started. So I want to talk to you guys about what are the top 3 issues that concern you. And if you can see my screen, I have a few issues that you might be thinking about. And so think about these, kind of rank them. What are the top 3 issues that concern you? And if they're not on here, go ahead and just list them down. And when you figure those 3 out, once you thought about them, throw them in the chat and we'll go ahead and get started and chat about those top 3 issues that we'll be talking about in the election or things that are going on right now in the country, things we're talking about and chatting about. Go ahead and throw those in the chat. So we might be thinking about healthcare or educational policy, college affordability, gun policy, police brutality, what's going on with the COVID-19 pandemic, Supreme Court appointments, climate change, any of those things. Here's your top 3 issues that are concerning you. Let's take about 2 minutes to really think about those. And again, once you've kind of arrived at what those top 3 issues are, go ahead and throw those in the chat. And I will also throw my top 3 in the chat as well. I'm going to cheat because I kind of have work. Awesome. So I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to bring us back into our gallery view. So I'm seeing a few things. I see a lot of police brutality, of course, racial inequality. I also see healthcare, COVID-19, the Supreme Court nominations, economy and unemployment, and various social injustices. So who wants to kick us off here? Talk to me about your top 3 and why, explain to me your reasoning behind those 3 being in your top issues that you're concerned about right now. Wants to kick us off?
Oh, let my cousin tell me no shit like this. That's just me. Huh? I would let my cousin tell me no shit like this.
10 seconds and
you dirty.
And see if there
is. No, exactly what you just said.
Jeremy, talk to me about your top 3. Supreme Court, economy and employment, and then racial inequality. Why are these your top three?
Okay, so I see economy and employment as a problem because
Oh, I
basically
can't
you.
hear you. Can everybody hear him?
Oh, can y'all hear me now?
Oh, it might be me. 1 second. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Can y'all hear me? Y'all can hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, so I see economy and employment as a problem because basically they tie into a bunch of the problems that go on in the world today. See, basically when like they have a problem with like economy, that means like not a lot of people having like stuff, having no, should, most people having no jobs, should lead to most time those people not having no jobs, they mostly lead to like young black boys. They shoot. They gotta turn to doing stuff like selling drugs and stuff. Then shoot. Then like there been problems with employment. That's how you end with like crime and stuff. So shoot, people can have like jobs. Then like they'll do stuff like they'll like rob people. Shoot. So basically like that. So basically like unemployment in the economy just like tying like all like the crime and stuff in the world. Then with the Supreme Court, the justice system is like just messed up. You have so many black men and males of different races should they're in like jail for like crimes that they didn't commit, or like they're innocent, like they probably been like there their whole life, and then they're still stuck there. The racial inequality, that's just like being a problem in the world. It's finally getting like the much it's finally getting like the much needed attention it need. It's just been like going on for too long. We just gotta like try to do something to like stop it.
Okay. How about, let's see. Layla, you also talk about racial inequality and the economy and healthcare. Do you have anything to add to that about just why it's your top three and your major concerns surrounding those things?
Yeah, I'd say it's my top three because those are the three of the things that stood out most because they affect like a lot of people, most people actually, in some kind of way.
Mm. Okay. And then, DeMichael, you said educational policy, crime, and the economy.
Hey, how you guys doing? Well, my three is going to be educational policy, crime, and economy. So, with educational policy, I view it as like a very top priority thing because with in anything that you do, you need education, and then the way that the education system is run, I feel like it does need a little bit more tweaking. Like sometimes teachers are not paid enough, and sometimes like I just feel like it just need to be. My bad, I thought my phone was ringing. It just needs to be like changed a little bit to where it can be better for students and students can pay attention more, in a sense because education is a very it's a big importance for you to keep on moving within life. Crime because crime rates are really up, especially up in black communities. For as I'll go back to what Jeremy said, like without education or without without having that money there, without having the idea of having money, or your family doesn't have enough money, that leads to a child probably around my age or something like that, taking matters in their own hands and selling drugs, something like that, and then they get killed or other people get killed in the crossfire, and then that just makes everything just bad in a sense. And then economy, we have the American dollar over time is starting to become less. Like I remember my teacher was talking about how the dollar used to be worth more than what it was now because of inflation. America pushing in a bunch of pushing the money out, printing a lot of money out, but not having enough gold to back it up. So that's another problem that we need to look into. So those are my problems.
Sorry. And then, my angel, you said police brutality, racial inequality, and healthcare. Let's talk about why those are your top three.
So basically, I said those because those directly can affect me as a black woman living in America. Because healthcare, I'm already proportionate to other people because I don't know if y'all knew this, but people of color are more likely to die in the hands of a doctor because of the healthcare system in America. And also, we got people out here dying because they can't afford to get the proper care that they need. There's people out here that I have family members that won't even go call an ambulance because they know how much money it's gonna cost, you know? And then racial inequality that directly affects me and many other people of color living in America and other actually like it's a global thing. It's not even just America. Um because as a black person, once again, I am disproportionate to certain opportunities because of my race. And also because like I'm going into the STEM field and that is a white male counterpart dominated field. So, you know, I gotta work extra hard in that. And then police brutality as a black person right now, it is becoming a alarming issue, even though it's already been an issue. But right now, you know, in the form of social media, is getting out at a faster rate. And it's like, you know, seeing somebody that look like me die on the news, you know, every day, that stuff, you know, really it hurt to see, you know? Like, so yeah, those are basically what I chose my three issues.
Okay. And then Zakai, what about you? You mentioned a couple things. What are your top three? Zakai, can you hear me? Okay. I'm not sure that Zakai can hear me. Precious, what about you? You mentioned COVID-19, police brutality, and racial inequality. Why are those your top three?
COVID, because it's still going on today and we don't know how long it's gonna last, and some people are not taking it serious. And then police brutality, because we see it happening everywhere in the world, and we wonder, are we gonna be next? And racial inequality, like black folks, we really not treated equally, and it need to be stopped. So yeah.
Okay, so I think this is a really good start to our conversation. And what I want to do is think about these kind of top three issues that you guys have and your concerns around them. And we're going to look at a recap of the vice presidential debate. And we're going to see how your top three actually match up with what's being kind of prioritized in this political space, because each of us kind of has our own concerns, especially things that are impacting us personally. So for example, I mentioned that for me, it's racial inequality and police brutality, it's educational policy, and it's climate change. But then thinking about when I'm looking at political analysts talk, or if I'm looking at different candidates, especially like our presidential candidates, thinking about that in this regard, I'm like, well, do they prioritize the same things that I do? So I'm going to share my screen and then we're going to have a conversation about those two things. There is, okay, and please let me know if you guys cannot see my screen.
There is a time to kill.
I'm sorry
a
about
time
this.
For justice and a time for mercy. Jake Brigance, the hero of A Time to Kill, returns in A Time for Mercy in stores now.
I didn't, Vice President Vance, I did not, excuse me, Susan, I did not create the rules for tonight.
Joe Biden.
Your campaigns agreed to the rules with the president. I'm here to, which moving from one topic to another, giving roughly equal time to both of you, which is what I'm trying very hard to do.
Go right ahead.
Joe Biden has been very clear. He will not raise taxes on anybody who makes less than $400,000 a year.
Repeal the Trump tax cut.
Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking. I'm speaking. Joe Biden will not raise taxes on anyone who makes less than $400,000 a year. He's been very clear about that. Joe Biden will not end fracking.
You're entitled to your own opinion, but you're not entitled to your own facts. You yourself said on multiple occasions when you were running for president that you would ban fracking.
On January 28th, the vice president and the president were informed about the nature of this pandemic. They knew what was happening and they didn't tell you. Can you imagine if you knew on January 28th, as opposed to March 13th, what they knew, what you might have done to prepare?
The reality is when you look at the Biden plan, it reads an awful lot like what President Trump and I and our task force have been doing every step of the way. And quite frankly, when I look at their plan that talks about advancing testing, creating new PPE, developing a vaccine, it looks a little bit like plagiarism, which is something Joe Biden knows a little bit about.
We now know, because of great investigative journalism, that Donald Trump paid $750 in taxes. When I first heard about it, I literally said, you mean $750,000? And it was like, no, $750.
He's paid tens of millions of dollars in taxes, payroll taxes, property taxes. He's created tens of thousands of American jobs. And the president said those public reports are not accurate.
How would your administration protect Americans with pre-existing conditions have access to affordable insurance if the Affordable Care Act is struck down?
Well, thank you, Susan. But let me just say, addressing your very first question, I couldn't be more proud to serve as vice president, a president who stands without apology for the sanctity of human life. I would never presume how Judge Amy Coney Barrett would rule on the Supreme Court of the United States, but we'll continue to stand strong for the right to life. When you speak about the Supreme Court, though, I think the American people really deserve an answer, Senator Harris. Are you and Joe Biden going to pack the court if Judge Amy Coney Barrett is confirmed?
Of the 50 people who President Trump appointed to the Court of Appeals for lifetime appointments, not one is Black. This is what they've been doing. You want to talk about packing a court? Let's have that discussion.
If Vice President Biden is declared the winner and President Trump refuses to accept a peaceful transfer of power, what would be your role and responsibility as Vice President?
When you talk about accepting the outcome of the election, I must tell you, Senator, your party has spent the last 3.5 years trying to overturn the results of the last election. It's amazing.
Stop sharing. Okay, so first of all,
in John Grisham's greatest courtroom drama yet, there is a time to kill.
Okay. So first of all, I want to ask you guys, do you, and I know this is just a recap, this is not the full debate. So with that in mind, I don't want us to think about this in a way that says that is the complete full discussion that was had. But if those are the key moments that folks are taking out of the debate, do you all feel that any of your concerns were addressed period, and then addressed in a strong manner at all, or in a way that works for you? Why or why not? Yes, go ahead, DeMichael.
I felt that my ideals were not talked about at all. It just seemed like it was just a debate between the parties. Like, it's like they're stating what the other one did wrong, or what the other one is not doing right, or what the other president has done, or what the other president is not doing, or something like that. It just seemed like a back and forth argument, or they tried to throw it off by saying that, you know, they would never do this and not exactly say what they would try to do, or something like that. It's just not, it didn't give me an answer on the things that I wanted to know.
So you didn't feel like your questions were answered. What you wanted to see was like, what are the policies you were going to put forth that have to do with my issues?
Yes, ma'am. But from there, it just seemed like it was just a debate between the parties, or whose party is better, or what party is worse.
And so to you, neither party is kind of putting forth anything that is like that's substantive, that says like policies are going to go forward. It needs to be attacked back and forth.
Yes, ma'am. Well, I can't say the Democratic one. I forgot her name. That she said that she was not going to tax anybody under $400,000 or something like that. That was like only that was one of the things that was named that I can say that was a accurate policy. That was well not accurate policy, but just a policy in general.
My angel, I saw you nodding. Do you agree?
Yeah. So, it was like, Pence, they would ask him a question and he would go attack, Kamala, and then like they would go off and none of the questions would get answered. So, but yeah, I agree. One of the my issues I think they did talk about was it wasn't specifically like in this clip or whatever, but one of the policies that um Kamala Harris and Joe Biden for the police brutality. One of their reform policies, was the chokehold um, bill thing. So yeah, and also one thing that really um, annoyed me with uh, was when Mike Pence was asked, what are you gonna do to protect Americans? And this man, he went off the question, you know, and that probably left a lot of people confused as well. So yeah, they answered like some of my beliefs basically,
So speaking
not all of
about police brutality and thinking about the policy that was put forth or saying that like they want to ban chokeholds, do you think, and this is open to everyone, do you think that that is enough? Or do you think that that is a substantive like response to police brutality?
them. I think it's a good step forward, but like, is it enough? No, they can't. They won't only die to a chokehold. They might die to 5 bullets to the head. It's not just the chokehold that's killing them. There has to be serious reform to these the power that these police hold over the people. So I mean, it's something, but it's not enough. There has to be more.
So do you have, and this again, this is open to anyone, do you guys have any things that you would like to see from them in that regard? Like thinking about police brutality and saying, okay, if this isn't enough, what types of policies would you like to see them implement? So for example, are there any like accountability measures you would like to see, or is there like, do you want, like last month we talked about defunding the police, would you want them to kind of have a conversation about that? Like what kinds of conversations would you like to see, thinking about specifically thinking about police brutality, and we'll move forward into some of the other issues that we talked about from a presidential standpoint, not like necessarily state and local candidates, but if your presidential or vice presidential candidates are talking about this, what are some of the things you want them to be talking about or thinking about? Anybody? I see some thoughts stirring.
Well, I guess like a really good policy that needs to be done is defunding the police, because we got like $50 million going, not even like over $100 million going to these police departments, and only a certain amount is going to education and food and to actual communities. They never think about what's causing the crime. So like, if we put more money out to these communities and they have better resources, and crimes won't need to be committed in order to survive, then there won't be, the police won't have that much power. There will be more money to go towards education and more social things to help out communities. So yeah.
Layla, do you have any responses? It seems like you have some thoughts on that.
Okay. I don't fully agree with the defunding the police part. Um, I would say more of they need to reallocate it to where they can use. Okay, they have a lot of money. We know that they can use it to better the resources. Okay, example. If they have, okay, there's a case. There's a domestic violence issue. They call the police. Instead of bring, you don't need like the police fully armed to go into a house to answer domestic violence. You could get someone who specializes in that. They can use resources to collaborate with them and bring them with them so they can like determine if police are needed. Okay, they don't need a lot of money. I mean, they do, but like they don't. There are more important stuff, but at the same time, the state's already like kind of in debt, so like they're already borrowing money from people, and they're trying to pay off debt at the same time. So the whole budget needs to be rewritten. Yeah.
Okay, so that's another that kind of leads us into a separate conversation. So now not only are we talking about whether or not we should, like how we should address a social problem that happens with the service, right? So the police act as a service, and we have issues with the police, the service of the police brutalizing folks here. If we're talking about defunding the police or transferring those resources or shifting those things, and shifting the ways that they're involved with folks. And now we're also talking about even the concept of having such a large budget for police and having the budgets that we have currently while we are in debt. Why is that a major concern for you, Layla, as far as like the country being in debt?
Can you repeat that?
Like why? Because you mentioned like, okay, the country is in debt, is in a lot of debt, trying to pay, or maybe possibly trying to get out of deficits and pay off debts. Why is that like a major concern for you?
Because we need money in the communities, like to live.
So the only thing I want to push back on that is like, and I guess I don't want to say push back, but I mean, sometimes from my perspective, I see that we are in debt, right? But then I also see that like our defense budget is still extremely huge. And so when we think about like deficits, right, and thinking about like paying different folks back, it seems like certain departments are where we want to cut from to think about the deficit, but then others, we don't really think about the deficit in relation to like the social problem. So like, I agree with you. What are we doing about this deficit if we say like we need to pay off debt? But I'm also asking the question, like, where are we finding this money for all of these different programs that we do want to fund? And why can't we seem to find money for the very things that might, help our people as well?
I can help Layla on that if you would like to.
This is a conversation, but I don't know that Layla needs help because I'm not arguing with Layla. I'm just, but
sorry, kind of some shots in her argument. So
no.
Bullet holes, but
this is not a shots fired situation.
Well, no worry. I just brought a knife. It's fine. But anyway, so that's what I was saying. Dealing with the economy is very important, and the reason, well, the way I see it is it's a big complicated game, right? So America wants to be this rich and powerful country, as it seems to be. So it has these big defenses, and which is pouring a lot of money into. And that money has always been poured into the defenses because America as itself grew up on the big stand of war and conquering and trying to expand its region. So of course it will pour a lot of money into its defenses. Now that we're not even dealing with that much, I can see where you're coming from, where we need to rearrange that budget and plug it into other things, which I do kind of agree with. On that. Yeah, so I do kind of agree with that on that. And then the money is coming. I knew there was somebody calling me. Anyway, so dealing with that, sorry. Okay, dealing with that, the money that is used to fund like most of everything in America is coming from us, from the people, us pouring the money back into circulation, and the money just keep on going in. And that goes to my other point. That's where we're going into more debt because America is pumping more money out without actually replacing it because the money or the green money that we have is just a statement up in a bank from how much gold that we have. And that's a huge problem that's going on, the inflation of the money and the money up in circulation. So either more things are going to cost more and we're going to go into more debt from that, or America needs to change its ways on how it like they also goes into like the import, that also goes into importing and different things like that, and what America does and how businesses actually kind of use America to make more money instead of like paying America's, paying America, property stuff and all that type of stuff. It's a complicated topic on that type of stuff.
But it's interesting what you're talking about there, because that kind of goes back into thinking about what Kamala Harris is talking about in terms of who's going to be taxed. Because you're saying like, so businesses and folks who are making a lot of money are not necessarily pouring money back into the economy. But we only get, we do get a statement from Kamala Harris about, income taxes. That says like, okay, well, we're not going to raise taxes for folks who make less than $400,000 a year, but we are going to increase them for folks that make over $400,000 a year. For folks who put economy as their top three, is that a sufficient policy or a policy that you would support, or something that, Ms. Francesca?
Before we get started on that part of the conversation, I just want to catch the new people up, the new folks in the chat up. So welcome, Roderick. Welcome, Allison. We were sharing some of our election concerns and some topics we're considering. So we touched a little bit on racial equality, police brutality, and now we're talking about the economy as a political concern.
Thank you, Ms. Francesca. Really appreciate that. And welcome, Roderick and Allison. So thinking about the policy of saying that a Joe Biden administration would want to increase taxes for folks who make more than $400,000 a year and not create any tax increases for folks who make over $400,000 or less than $400,000. They did not mention any tax cuts for folks who make less than $400,000 in the debate. How are we feeling about that? Is that something that we think is good for the economy? Is it something that we're like, maybe that's a start? Is it something that we're like, nah, I don't really agree with that? How are we feeling about that? I see lots of faces being made. So I would like to hear the commentary. The commentary behind our
No, don't worry. I'm just sitting over here thinking. I'm trying to think like, how am I gonna put this in words? Because I'm gonna say that I'm saying on the surface it sounds really good, like that people who really can't afford to get their taxes raised, they can actually they can actually sit back, pay the regular tax that it is, and then the people that are much richer, they pay the tax. But there's some conflict going up in that because how would people feel about that? People with a lot of money might feel like they're being taxed, and then they can start they can start pulling back from that and not paying anything at all. They can try to protest that, or in a sense, or we can have I'm trying to think. If and I'm trying to think about how how we have not supply and demand, but when taxes are raised, usually when taxes are raised, things like what you buy, I think it goes either down or up. I don't exactly know, but how would that be affected? There's a lot of things that could be affected because of that policy, not just because of people who can't pay that tax. That's what I'm just really sitting over here thinking about. So I'm not really sure if that is like a good approach or a bad approach upon that.
As we're considering this conversation about the economy and taxes, one thing that I want you all to consider is the question of who should wealth belong to in this country. So we're talking a lot about taxes, and we're talking about people who we perceive existing as perceiving as being us, but the reality is like wealth is very much so concentrated with very particular people in this country who have a lot of it. And so as we think about that, do we think those people should be able to hoard the wealth and hoard the money in this country? Do we consider that to be a democratic value, or is that a capitalistic value?
Me personally, I believe that that is democratic value. Mostly because no, I believe that's a democratic value because I feel like y'all gonna attack me, but I feel like it is. Nah, no, I saw Miss Francesca. She seemed like she was about to pull out. Anyway, but anyway, I feel like really that is a democratic value because already if we go into like healthcare or like the social social security, mostly a majority of the American population are paying for that for people for to have social security or for like food stamps and different things like that. So and then I've talked to people like that, like people like middle class people, people like y'all, we pay for like not we, I'm not paying for, I'm just a kid. But anyway, adults like that, they pay for that. They pay for other people for to live, and then some of those people are actually angry about that, which is the reason why they go into other sides for to say that they have to like defend on themselves. So I'm just taking in people's account about how they would feel about that and paying for something that in a sense is not being mean or anything because the well-being of people is my priority, but in their heads is could be not their priority in a sense.
I do want to put forth something in thinking about what Ms. Francesca is talking about in terms of hoarding wealth, but also thinking about how wealth is built off of labor and thinking about, if I'm Jeff Bezos and I'm essentially one of the richest people in the world, that wealth is not something that I built on my own. I have to have a team of people working together to build this company that has become as profitable as it is. Not to say that there's not a level of strategic planning and different things that Jeff Bezos has to put into place for this machine to work, but you can't run the machine without a variety of people working on that machine daily, every single day. And in order to, profit, if we're thinking about the capitalist idea of how you gain profit, you are trying to keep your labor costs down and you're trying to keep your supply costs down. And then you can mark up your price in such a way that you can keep those costs down, but then also make a larger profit. And so when we're also thinking about, how do they get to keep that wealth concentrated in, it's also, do you get to benefit from the labor of folks who are helping you amass this amount of wealth without introducing a portion of that wealth back into, various services that might also benefit them. So when we talk about whether or not that's a capitalist ideal or a democratic ideal, we also are thinking about who's benefiting the most from it, and is it fair based on who's contributing to, what's contributing to that amass of wealth, because between labor and of course consumption by various consumers.
Roderick, I know you're taking your philosophy and politics class right now. Are these any of the topics that you're kind of talking about in class?
So like when she was talking about it, the first thing that popped into my head was every now and then we see a celebrity be like, oh, I'm self-made, and you look at their track record and you see, oh, you got $100,000 to start your business, or you got some type of connection to somebody to really leap forward versus somebody who's actually starting their business from the ground up.
And so thinking about that as a concept, how does that make us think about taxes and think about our responsibility to contribute to services that benefit other folks, whether we are building businesses, whether we're self-made, whether we're getting, contributions from folks to start our businesses, or whether we're even working our regular, day job but making a contribution to the folks around us. How are we feel? Like, how do we feel about that as a concept? As people, do we feel like that is something that is required of us or that we should do?
I'm so sorry. Can you like restate that question? Because I didn't understand what you said.
I'm sorry. So thinking about like the concept of taxes, where it's like, okay, I have a certain amount of income, or I've bought property, or I have different things, and I'm paying taxes to the government on these different things, and the money from my taxes goes towards funding a variety of programs that the government introduces. Do we think, because when we talk about whether or not we should increase taxes or reduce taxes, we're talking about whether or not we have this responsibility to to the folks that live around us. Do we think that that is an ideal that we want to contribute to? And then, well, let's start there and then we'll move forward.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, I actually do agree with that. That's what I was trying to say the whole time. Like, I'm not knocking that idea of just of taxing like when you make a certain amount of money. I'm saying it should, like, my idea of it is that it shouldn't just be 400, what was it, $400,000, right? That can, they tax higher. I think that a certain percentage of tax should be like, a certain percentage of should be going higher for how much you make. Like at $30,000, you get taxed this. At like $100,000, you get taxed this. Like, so it can be like spread throughout the board. Because what I'm thinking about is like, I'm up in AP European history right now, and we learned about Roman history, and Rome was is continuously getting compared to America, right? So I was just sitting there thinking, no, it was in class, and the patricians was the wealthy people, and the plebeians was the poor people, or people that didn't make that much money. So, and then at one point in time, they actually was trying to give some of the plebeians land to the poor people because they couldn't afford it. Just give it straight to them. And then the patricians got mad, and then they actually persuaded the poor people to kill the person that actually was up in power at the time. Now, I'm not saying that can happen, but I'm just saying that, when people have to pay money for something that that they felt that another person did not fully work for, they're going to get mad at that, and then you're going to have a bunch of angry people up in America, a big population of angry people. So that's why I'm saying, when you're taxing, we should spread it out equally throughout. When people get to a certain when people get to a certain what is it, how much money they make, that's how much that should determine how much they get taxed, or how much taxes they have to pay. That's just my ideal.
Before I jump in, I want to spread this out. So how are we feeling about this? Do we agree with DeMichael at all? Or do we have other thoughts?
I'd love to hear some from my college fellows, especially now that you are getting your either your refunds or your what are they called? Your work study, which is federally taxed. It is technically part of your financial aid package, but you are getting federally taxed on that. So they're saying to you, we are demanding this money back to spread across the country.
Yeah, I ain't gonna lie. It was kind of funny when I got my first paycheck back and I saw like what was deducted from taxes. I was like, I finally understand my mom, and so that was a good little laugh last Saturday. But I just think, yeah, the more money you make, the more money should go back. But it's a really weird topic because of course everybody wants to keep their money, because thinking about it, if I somehow got rich, I know I want to keep my money. So I just don't know. It's a weird thing to approach.
Facts, bro, and I really agree. And I really agree with that. It is very complicated because like, what if you got rich right now? It's like if you got rich right now, and somebody just knocked at your door and be like, "Yo, I need 40% of that for the spread throughout the whole country of people that you don't really even know." But it's gonna be fine. We're actually helping people, like that type of thing. Like, they just come to you knocking on your door and be like, "Yo, I'm gonna take some of your money that you worked hard for," and it just spread throughout like everybody. Wouldn't you feel like kind of angry at that in a sense. But me personally, I wouldn't. But but yeah, in a sense.
So, okay, I want to talk about the fact that if you wouldn't, then how would you talk that through? Because again, I mean, folks are on different sides of this issue and they're trying to convince a variety of voters and others about like why they should agree with a policy like this. So if you're saying that, I wouldn't have a problem with if I amass this amount of wealth and they're saying I need to redistribute it by, paying a certain amount in taxes, how would you talk to somebody about that, maybe to even get them on your side about that or to get them to see your view of that?
I
Well,
definitely
oh,
wouldn't
Oh, I'm
have a
sorry.
problem with that. Huh? Oh, did I
You would
interrupt
have
you?
a problem with that, Roderick.
Oh wait, would or would it?
I'm asking, would you or
Oh
wouldn't?
no, I wouldn't. I wouldn't have a problem with that. I would not, because I'm pretty sure me and many other people wouldn't be where we are without tax programs and stuff that were there when we came up. Of course, the big one is like food stamps. So of course, programs like that, they wouldn't survive without people's tax monies. But yeah. I feel like the big thing about taxes is seeing that money being put back into the community, and nobody really sees that. So I think that's where the issue of taxation comes from.
Yeah, and I agree with that. Like, one way I do, I'm okay with that, with taking out some of the money to give back to the country because, and how I would sway with that is because I'm growing up right now in not a big financially inclined family, and stuff like good tax income food stamps really help out. So I was raised up in that. That's why I know that it's really good and it's really nice to give back to the country so we can continue to fund it. So we can continue to fund those people that are up in those situations. Now, the way I would persuade another person who's probably haven't been in that situation and is just feeling like their money is just being spent on people that they don't really know or they don't really trust, is just going like, if we all give back our money in a sense, even though we make a lot of money, so we're gonna give back to it. Those people can now like start, start bringing up the American workforce again, and start making money so where we can don't have to pay as much for them anymore. So once they start getting jobs and start doing all that type of stuff, we can start paying less in a sense. We have to get, because the way a human mind works is what am I getting back in return in a sense. So you have to try to play it on both sides. You feel what I'm saying?
Michael over here with the Reaganomics. I would look into that, to Michael, if I were you. Mayangel, you mentioned you were going into STEM, and so that is right now the field that is producing a lot of the wealth in the United States. I would love to hear your perspective as you transition into this field and you will be making a lot of money, like how that transition will be for you in terms of taxes and thinking about that, especially you kept mentioning like there are a lot of like political factors that are impacting you as a Black person. And so as you transition maybe into a different wealth sphere, like how are you bringing that into that space with you?
Well, I wouldn't have a problem paying higher taxes as I, make more money because what I look like keeping all that money and they got people on the street that like, can't even get go get some food. But also, holding all that money is just gonna hurt everybody in the end. Cause you got all these people with this all this money and it's not coming back and we putting out, more, that could cause a lot of problems for everybody. So yeah, taxes is a very, iffy thing. It's very complex, but like at the same time, you're thinking about, the top 1% and like how they got this money, and the people that's not paying a lot of taxes, they are basically, making money off of those people with, like the Jeff Bezos, for example. Um, he's he got sweatshops Apple, sweatshops. They're making money off of, capitalizing off of everyday working people, you know? And it's even more that, capitalize off of that. But that's going more into capitalism. We're not talking about that. But yeah, so that's my stance.
Thank you for sharing.
I think it's really interesting. We also are talking about the thought process of someone who might, I guess, buck against this concept that they should be paying a certain amount of taxes to contribute to social programs. And I wonder, do we think there's a space in which we can change the entire mindset that says, like, I get mine and I'm responsible, just for me, and I take this, outside of the space that says, okay, well, this is how it benefits you. Like, if I'm going to say, hey, if I give this money to this social program, do I need for there to be some sort of like kickback to me where I'm like, oh, well, then folks can get jobs and then you won't have to do this anymore. Or if you do this, then, this is how it benefits, you and everybody at the same time. Can I just kind of say, this is a good thing? People need help. Is there a space where we could shift that kind of mindset?
Honestly, I don't, I don't think so, because a lot of people don't have that moral concept that we do, and I hope y'all do too. That we do that, just being good feels good, and actually giving back is a good thing that's going to help you out in life and make you feel better about yourself. But most people don't see it that way. They see it as like, what am I benefiting from this situation? If I'm not benefiting anything and just giving out my money, like, I'm not gonna do it. Like, that's how some people see it. And honestly, I think that just a lot of people just gonna feel that way because that's how they was this is how they was raised. Like, like when they get their own things, that's how they're gonna do it. It's just a concept that is just hard for them to break away from. Now, some people have broke away from that, but I don't really think there is a way for to really break away from that concept. Now, I could be wrong, but I'm just saying.
I would say, I think when we think about political organization, because there are folks, particularly on the political left, who really do champion the concept of collective responsibility and the responsibility of the state to take care of its citizens and to redistribute, resources amongst everyone else. I think it's important for us to think about ways that we can take the things that we value and the way that we kind of and champion those things. If I say, like, this is a value system for me, how can I champion that in a way that I can get other folks on board and organize other folks to kind of to shift their perspective on, from capitalist individualism to a space of collective responsibility and shared resources and, um, mutual benefit in that kind of way. And so as you guys think about voting and thinking about these different kinds of elections, we get the space to really debate these ideas and we get to organize in this kind of space. How do you guys think that as you grow, whether you're a voting age or not, would kind of use not only your vote, but your voice to really lend your voice to these issues to kind of say, okay, the way that we're doing this, or the way that I think we're doing this is wrong or right, and I think we should be heading in a particular direction. What do you guys can do to champion, like, the issues that you guys say are your major concerns?
Rashad, I know you're definitely a leader, not just at Brick, but at your school and such. And so I would love to hear how you feel like you can translate those leadership skills that you've developed into, like, thinking about politics and political action. If Rashad is here with us.
And I know, Rashad, I know you're at work, so you can also throw some things in the chat as well. Does
I
anybody
just
else
want
want to
to,
talk
I
about?
just, I just want to say, Rashad, the hustle, I respect that. You know, at work and select the critical conversation, I respect that. If you can hear me, but one thing, for me personally, I forgot what the question was. Oh, now I remember. For me personally, with everything that I do, I like to bring people together. Of no matter what color, no matter what race or anything, I like to bring people together, and I think that community and that feeling of togetherness is the first step that we can do to anything for to fix our problems or for to actually talk about these different problems because I think that was why the situation or like that conversation between the Democratic official and the Republican official, I think his name was Mike Pence, and I forgot the other woman's name. I'm so sorry about that. But they were both very, they was like arguing and not really agreeing on anything in a sense because we're so split in ideals to where we just need to bring our ideals together, and that'll be a sense, and that'll be able to actually attack the ideas. I mean, attack the problems that we have head on instead of looking at it from two different angles. Because in order for to find or for to fix a problem, we need to look at all angles.
Anybody else? Just on how we as individuals can take our leadership skills and take to champion our value systems and try to gain support for those, like for the policies and issues that we support.
I feel like a lot of people see the two-party system as just that, a two-party system. Like wherever you align, you strictly have to stick to those values. But doing so, as we see now, we can't get anything done. I feel like you have to be somewhere in the middle because when you have two opposing sides that can't come to a solid agreement, there's nothing else to do but just take that middle. And I feel like for the political left, we've more so have tried to strive to take that middle, and it's just we're still getting shut down. And the issue is going where are we getting shut down from? And once like I feel like once we figure that out, the political left could I don't know, like I don't know what I'm trying to say. It's just it's that power struggle that's always there having the two-party system. Just I don't know what I'm trying to say.
I get where you're coming from, bro. I get what he's trying to say. Like the basically that um since there's two separate ideas and then so many people are just gridlocked on one side, it's hard for to actually see that the problem at hand can be solved with both ideals. So the problem at hand can be solved with both ideals, but since people are just split between this side and that side, the problem will never be fixed. It'll just be trying to fix this way that's clearly not working, or this way that's clearly not working. But instead of just putting them together, it's just not going to work like that. And I get where he's coming from, where he's going like, there's a lot of people that's trying to move in the middle, and I think that's where third parties come in. But you know, it's just hard for to try to get that on board with a lot of people since you know Americans are just split in ideals.
I really want to continue this conversation, but it's also 8 o'clock and we do have a couple of things to talk about. But I will say, like, thinking about the dominating forces that the two political parties and how polar being on either side of those things can be, especially if you are maybe an independent voter or you're a voter in those various parties that kind of that doesn't have that gridlock view that gridlock view of I have to support this side no matter what, or I have to support every single policy that comes out of this party no matter what, or even wanting to push that particular political party or just even the folks in your sphere beyond what we've imagined so far for politics in this country. It can be a little difficult, but I think if we are constantly thinking about and challenging what we know about our various systems, whether that's the two-party system, whether it's just the entire democratic republic structure that